going to talk about how horses learn because this is super important. Wherever we have a young horse or a foal or an adult horse, horses are always learning. And there are actually three main ways horses learn that I am going to talk about in this live. And if you are here, let me know in the comments below because horses learn very quickly and they learn all the time. And I think the three main ways we can influence what a horse learns is with reinforcement, either then positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement, or with association. And these three things are obviously linked. And when it comes to reinforcement, then positive doesn't mean good and negative doesn't mean bad. Positive means adding something and negative means taking something away. And what's mainly used with horses and what horses respond to, like from nature, is the negative reinforcement, like something is taken away to reinforce. Versus if we want to use positive reinforcement, we have to first teach the horse what positive reinforcement is, like giving them something. So if you ever had a wild horse or a foal or something, you know that horses, they don't necessarily know what treats are, and they also don't know how this kind of works. We have to train them to teach them how to, respond to positive reinforcement. But if we pick up on a lead rope and want to lead the horse, we are immediately using negative reinforcement, which is then that we take something away to reinforce. So if you are leading a foal for the first time, the reinforcement would then be that when the foal follows and steps forwards, there is going to be then a slack in the lead rope. So the pressure in the lead rope is taken away to reinforce. And that's how the foal then learns to step forwards when the slack is taken out of the lead rope. Yes, and the same like with the rein aid and the leg aid. When we give a signal, the release is the reward for responding to the signal. If we pick up on the rein and the horse softens the neck and looks in the direction we picked up on the rein towards, we should then give the rein a slack, because the horse, they learn from the slack and not from the pressure. Yes, it's the same with the leading. They don't learn from the pressure, but they learn from the release, which is then the negative reinforcement. And it's basically almost impossible to not use negative reinforcement when around horses. If you want to lead your horse or if you want to ride your horse with riding signals, these are all based on negative reinforcement, and the release is what they learn from. Yes, versus then positive reinforcement is something the horse needs to learn, and then they learn from the active reward. So if you want to teach a horse to lead without a lead rope, you would then get the horse moving forwards together with you from getting treats. But the minute you have a lead rope involved, you are using also negative reinforcement. Yes, I hope this makes sense. So let me know in the comments below if you use negative or positive reinforcement, or maybe probably both. And if you knew what these terms mean, because this is actually super important. And I think that's the main issue with, horse training, is that we as humans, we focus more on the pressure than on the release, versus the horse learns from the release and focuses more on the release than the pressure. And if we use like constant pressure, we then of course need to use even more pressure to give a signal. So if we are, for instance, then leading our horse on a tight lead rope all the time, there's no release, then if we want the horse to go faster, we need to, tighten the lead rope even more and give a kind of a louder signal to do something more than the normal. And the same with the reins. If we constantly ride with contact and doing stuff with the reins, if we then want to make a signal, we have to do something even more. Yes. So that is maybe the biggest issue with the negative reinforcement, is that for it to work, we need to be mindful of the release. Yes. And I think the biggest issue with the positive reinforcement is that the horse first needs to learn about positive reinforcement for it to work. But it's easier for us to understand positive reinforcement because we are more aware of when we are giving a treat or rewarding with an active reward than when we are rewarding with the release. Yes, but the third thing, which is very often forgotten when it comes to horses, is that horses, they learn very much from association. They are associative beings. Just like dogs and just like humans, we all kind of rely on association. So even if we use positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement correctly, and the horse has some really bad associations with something, I think we first need to solve the association and create new associations. This is, of course, especially with horses others have given up on, or like rescues or off-the-track horses, stuff like that. They might have lots of associations. So if we don't create new association, the horse will kind of go back into old patterns. Yes, like in Norway, we have many off-the-track trotters, and they obviously associate the trotting track with trot competitions where they're supposed to trot as fast as they can and be the first horse over the finish line. And if we retrain then an off-the-track trotter home at the farm or at the riding school, we can do very well with that horse and teach them, to respond to the rein aid differently and respond to the leg aid and teach them a whole bunch of stuff. But once we then bring that horse back to the trotting track and the horse then associates the situation with trot racing, that horse is going to go back into trot racing mode. Yes, so to then break that association, we need to bring the horse to the trotting track and create, new associations and new experiences. Yes, and this is something I became very much aware of when riding an endurance competition a couple of years back. Because the start of the endurance competition was at a trotting track, and there were several off-the-track trotters participating in the endurance contest. And they had been on different endurance rides and done dressage and whatnot, and it had all been functioning very well. But once all the horses lined up at the trotting track, and it was like get set, ready, go, they bolted off in like full speed trot and seemed to have forgotten everything about the rein aid and the rider and everything, because they were then back in the good old days of trot racing. Yeah, so just be aware of that. And this could also apply to like trailer loading, like if a horse has bad associations with the trailer, then of course we need to create new good associations with the trailer for the horse to then start associating the trailer with a good place to be. Yes, and I think also many horses, they associate them being alone and away from other horses with stress and anxiety. And we also, to be then able to connect with this horse and properly retrain it, we need to solve the separation anxiety before we do any other training. So this is kind of quite a common negative or bad association horses have, is that the minute they are alone, they start, to become anxious. And we don't necessarily recognize this as anxiety. We might recognize it as the horse behaving badly or being suddenly stressed. We might think it's because of the new environment or because of the wind or something else, but very often it's because the horse is then away from the other horses and associates that with being stressed, which is then going to continue until we solve the separation anxiety and build then new associations so that the horse becomes confident when alone and not stressed when alone. Yes. Hello. Nice to see you, Deborah. You say you have a cob. When I got him 3 years ago, he was very aggressive and pushy, looking for treats all the time. I taught myself negative reinforcement to help him, and he's much happier now. Yes. Great work, Deborah, because the thing with positive reinforcement is that if we reinforce the wrong thing, we are going to get more of it. So we get what we reward. And if we reward pushy and aggressive behavior, we're going to get more of it. So then the horse is going to associate treats with being pushy and aggressive. And yes, good of you to do then a treat detox and use negative reinforcement, because some horses, they actually also become stressed from the treats, especially if we don't do it right, or it can also kind of trigger some kind of need in the horse, and they become a bit anxious to try to figure out what they're supposed to do to get the cookie. So it can definitely bring out a lot of problems. Yes, good, Deborah. How good of you to help this horse. And I think many horses today, they could actually benefit from a treat detox and learn, how to do stuff without constantly being actively rewarded for it. And I also think many riders and trainers today could benefit from actually learning negative reinforcement and how horses then learn from the release. And if we use constant riding signals or constant pressure, we then need to, the release becomes a bit muddy, because there is quite a few horses out there who are ridden without any release whatsoever, and that's also very stressful for them. Yes, so I hope this helps. And that was actually it for this evening. So let me know if you learned something new. And especially with the association, if you have a problem with your horse, it could be that basically your horse associates something with something, and that's it, not a good association. So you need to then bridge this by creating new associations. Yes, wherever you do that with negative reinforcement or positive reinforcement doesn't really matter, as long as you create new good memories where the horse had, not so beneficial ones. Okay, so I hope this helps, and keep up the great work with your horse. And bye for now.